All right, gang. I'm sure you were relieved to know there was no class on Monday. And I do hope that all of you are safe and that you didn't suffer any major damage as a result of Hurricane Matthew. But there were a couple of really important things that we needed to go over. And since I won't be able to see you before you go out into the field full time, this seemed like the best way to get the work done. Two things I want to clarify with everybody: the social studies portfolio and the assessment task. I know I feel like I've done that assessment task to death. You can submit the portfolio on Thursday to Dr. Draper in class, or if you need a little more time to get your materials organized, you have until Friday at 5. You can put it in the mailbox outside my door, just like it says here. Attached to the email, this message where the screencast is also a handout that provides step-by-step directions on how to organize that portfolio. So it's there, and it has the rubric with it, so you should be good to go. It's pretty easy. Assessment task. I did read, for those of you that were in class on Thursday, the first submission you did on the assessment that you're selecting for this task for your final, quote-unquote, final exam in social studies. And I still think we need some more clarification. So first of all, remember this should be a formative assessment. It's got to be something that goes beyond recall level. It should be something that is a way for students to demonstrate their thinking, so you can give them feedback on what they're thinking. So you want to make sure that it's a higher order level that you're assessing in terms of thinking. And the other thing we have to do is make sure we clearly identify the criteria that you're going to use to evaluate their work when it comes to this one formative assessment. So let's look at the example one more time. Here's my 5 days of my quote-unquote unit on the United States relations or interference, as some people say, with countries in the Middle East. I've highlighted this because this is the learning objective that I'm focusing on for this task. I'm also highlighting it because you'll see the students are practicing the skill of analysis, and they're also going to have 2 more times to practice that skill. So whatever feedback I give them after they complete this on day 3 or lesson 3, they're going to be able to use it to get better at doing analysis on day 4 and day 5. That's the kind of pattern you want when you're thinking about selecting a formative assessment for this task as best as you can. This is what they're going to look for in EdTPA. So you want to try to practice what is being looked for. So in order to know if my students can analyze the position on the crisis in Syria, the students are going to be creating a digital flyer. They have to decide if they think the position the United States has right now is, quote-unquote, the right one. If the United States should support the rebels or not. Okay? So they're going to create a digital flyer that decides whether or not they think we should do that. They have to have evidence to support their position. So evidence can come from lesson number 3, lesson number 2, or lesson number 1. So I'm trying to give them opportunities to learn, to use information they've learned. Not simply recall, but use the information to take a stand. They're going to make the digital flyer, and they're also going to complete these sentence frames. The United States should support the rebels in Syria because blah, 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 blah. Again, evidence, right, to support their position. Another reason why the United States should support the rebels in Syria is because blah, 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 blah. Evidence to support their position. So when they turn this in, right, I'm going to have an opportunity to tell them at least 3 things: that they can make their position clear, and that they've used accurate evidence effectively to support their position, right? When they give me their digital flyer and they complete the sentence frames. Those are my grading or evaluation criteria. Was their argument clear? Was it clear that they want the United States to not support the rebels? Did they use evidence when they staked that claim? And was the evidence they used accurate? This is what I mean by evaluation criteria. Some of you on your initial submission gave me things like they completed all 5. They wrote incomplete sentences. If it's not an ELA formative assessment where the focus of the learning goal is on students will be able to craft complete complex sentences, then that is not a legitimate evaluation criteria, okay? You want things that have meaning or meat to them. And this would be when I tell students, give them feedback on the quality of their arguments and the way they construct arguments, they can use that feedback again on future lessons. The next time I ask them to construct an argument, they'll be like, oh, I remember. I need to have more evidence. One piece of evidence isn't enough. Oh, I need to think about being clear when I say I support or I disagree with something. Okay? So you really need to think about the evaluation criteria a little bit more. Okay, so once you've picked the assessment, this is what you're going to do while you're just going to make sure when you collect this formative assessment from the whole class, right? You're going to make a copy, keep it someplace safe so you can bring it back with you. And we're going to make this table together in class when you come back, except instead of my criteria for my assessment, your criteria will be here. The other thing you need to do while you're out in the field full time is identify what we call 3 focus students. And I have attached to this email something that's called a learner profile. You're going to complete a learner profile for each of the 3, not the whole class, just the 1, 2, 3 students that are your focus students. Now, you're just going to pick any old 3? No. You want to try to pick a group of focus students that represent a variety of learners in your class. So that could be a student with an IEP or a 504, or another student who has super high ability levels, or another who maybe has some kind of behavior management struggles. So we want a representation of the diversity within the class. All you have to do while you're out in the field is identify 3 students that represent diversity in your classroom and complete that learner profile. That's all you have to do. So while you're in the field, you've got 2 tasks to make sure you grade and give feedback on the identified assessment that you picked, and to find your 3 focus students and complete that learner profile. Okay. Before we go too much further down the road, though, I just to double, triple check that everybody is clear on what's expected with the assessment task, I'm also going to be sending you an invitation to a Google Doc where you will have an opportunity to sign up for an individual appointment. Each one's about a half hour, and you'll have an opportunity to bring your assessment and make sure that it is the correct kind of assessment. And we'll talk about your evaluation criteria as well. So that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoy your time out in the field, and I will be in touch. Thanks.